Hi guys, today we're talking about the different keto sweeteners that I use when I'm baking. But first I want to let you guys know, if you stick around till the end, I'm going to show you guys how you can download a little infographic I made that sums up this entire video in one little printable. So there are 5 different sweeteners I use in most of my recipes: swerve, erythritol, xylitol, and liquid stevia. And you can split them into 2 different categories. You have non-nutritive sweeteners and nutritive sweeteners. So non-nutritives are the ones that don't have any calories. So that's Splenda, stevia, all those guys. And then you have nutritive sweeteners, which do have calories. So these 4 here are nutritive sweeteners. They're also sugar alcohols, also called polyols. They're mostly indigestible carbs, but as you can see, they have different carb levels. So they all do have some amount of calories in them. And I'll link below in the description box where I got all this info. And some of these have different sweetness levels than the others. So xylitol has the same sweetness as sugar, and erythritol and isomalt don't. And the big reason to use these instead of stevia or Splenda and those guys is because these actually mimic what sugar does in baking. So they add bulk, they add moisture retention, they add texture. And is another reason not to use Splenda and all sweet and low in those guys is because when you see those baking blends, they tend to have additives that are not keto friendly. So you see these 2 have dextrose and maltodextrin added, and those are what provide the bulk, because sucralose on its own does not provide any of the benefits of mimicking sugar the way sugar alcohols do. So these 2 here, isomalt and xylitol, these 2 are higher carb compared to the other sugar alcohols, but they stay liquid when they're in a low water content situation. So if you're making cookies, candies, syrups, if you use erythritol or swerve, it will come out of solution. It will get all grainy and crunchy, and you don't want that. And so when you're making these types of desserts, you really want to use xylitol or isomalt. Now, xylitol will measure just like sugar, and a lot of people have digestive issues with these kind of higher carb polyols, but as this brand mentions on their packaging, if you gradually increase your consumption over a couple of weeks, your body won't have as much of a hard time with it, and you will eventually adjust to it. I tend to think of these the same way, the way people think about prunes and beans. So if you don't usually have prunes or beans as part of your normal diet, and you all of a sudden add them in, especially in large quantities, you're gonna have digestive issues. Same thing here. I'm not saying that any of these sugar alcohols are as healthy for you as something as natural as beans and prunes, but it is a significantly better alternative to sugar. So this company claims that xylitol only has 1/4 the carbohydrates that sugar has, but most of the other measurements that I've found online for xylitol show that it has at least half, if not up to 60 or 75% of the calories and carbs that sugar has. So I'm going to stick with that measurement. And here it says that it's 0 calories for 1 teaspoon, but if you're using such a tiny amount of any sugar alcohol, it's probably going to be about 0 calories. The problem is in baking, we tend to use a lot more than just 1 teaspoon. So you need to keep in mind that as you eat more of it, it's no longer going to count as 0 calorie. And these next 2 are swerve and erythritol. Swerve is technically made of erythritol but has some additives. They're both much lower in carb. The downside is that they granulate when you put them in something like cookies or a syrup, so they're better for a higher moisture content baking. And now this also claims to be 0 calories, but again they're measuring for 1 teaspoon. This is the granulated erythritol. And for swerve, the same thing. Now these are the 2 additives I was talking about for swerve sweetener. There are oligosaccharides and natural flavors. Now I haven't been able to find any research on oligosaccharides that really explains properly what they are, but this company claims that they don't add any carbs or calories, and it also makes it measure cup for cup like sugar, which is different from plain erythritol. Plain erythritol is a little less sweet than sugar, but if you're using swerve, it will be at the same sweetness levels. Mind you, swerve is much more expensive than plain erythritol. The last sweetener I use is liquid stevia. Even though there are no digestive issues with this sweetener, it is a non-nutritive sweetener. It provides no calories, and therefore it doesn't provide us with any of the benefits of mimicking sugar. It doesn't do any moisture retention, doesn't help us with bulking or structure. So I consider this a flavoring and not really a sugar substitute the way that the polyols are. Now, a lot of people have some issues with stevia because they claim that it has a base of alcohol or other things, but if you see here, this base is only 11% alcohol plus water. But as you can see, vanilla extract, which is commonly used in the States, has 41% alcohol. So I think if you're willing to use this kind of vanilla extract, you should be fine with liquid stevia, especially because if you use it in a heated dessert, the alcohol will evaporate off. So to sum everything up, I use xylitol and isomalt when I'm making things with a low water content like cookies cookies, candies, and syrups. Isomalt is more expensive, but it does have a slightly lower carb count than xylitol. As for cakes, cheesecakes, ice creams, anything with a more medium amount of water, I use Swerve or erythritol. Erythritol is much cheaper, but Swerve does have a slightly better flavor, and you can use it as a one-to-one substitute for sugar, whereas erythritol you'll need to add a little bit extra. And you need to keep in mind that the more erythritol you have to add to a recipe, the higher the likelihood that it's going to come out of solution, which means it'll be grainy and crunchy. And then liquid stevia I use for things like drinks, custards, and sauce. A lot of people will mix a bit of erythritol with the stevia, which I think is a great idea because stevia can sometimes have a bitter aftertaste. And so if you use a small amount of erythritol, it gives it more rounded flavor, and then you can use stevia to lower the calories and carbs. Now, if you want to get all the info from this video in an easy printable infographic, you can head to the link in the description box, which is my Patreon site. If you really love the videos I make and the recipes that I give you guys access to for free, you can support me on Patreon as little as a $1 donation per month. You can get all sorts of behind the scenes access. You can see how I make my recipes, how I do my editing, everything, and you will get little freebies like this one to download. If you're at the $10 or higher patron level, you will even get all of my e-cookbooks, including past ones and all future ones, for free. Now, I know there are a lot of other sweeteners that people use on keto. If you use something different, please let me know in the comments what you use and why, because I'm always up for experimenting with new ingredients.